Dear learners and listeners, Namaskar. I am Dr. Shweta and today we are going to talk about a new program which is communication. Communication, just like food and shelter, is an important means of survival. We only have to look around us to realize that there are various means of communication that are used for reaching large number of people. We can obtain entertainment, information, knowledge, political updates, latest movie releases and the like from media, books and other people. We exchange information through words, gestures, symbols, tones, etc. So, as per the introduction, it is clear that from today's program, you will know about the components of communication process, how communication can be made more effective, the significance of non-verbal communication in the Indian context, as well as we will also be discussing about the role and impact of mass media. Let us first of all know about the meaning of communication, that what do we mean by communication. It is actually a process of interaction with people and the environment. That is, when we interact with others, we use language to transmit information, ideas, attitudes from one person to the other person. For example, when you learn that your friend is unwell, you ask for her about her health and express your anxiety about her well-being. Communication is thus a personal process which occurs between people so as to bring about a change in behavior, and it allows us to express our thoughts and emotions through words and actions. There are various elements of communication. Let us discuss about all these elements one by one. The first element of communication says that communication is a two-way process. As the name suggests, this means that communication involves a sender and a receiver. For example, when you talk to your father, communication is at the individual level. Here also the sender and receiver are available. You are sending a message to your father and your father is receiving it. When a teacher talks to a group of students, communication is at group level. Here the sender is the teacher and receiver are the students. The second element says that there has to be a message while communicating. The information has to be in form of a message, a directive, an idea, a feeling or an opinion. Unless a message is present in the communication, communication will not take place. Third element says that there has to be a commonness of understanding, which means that communication can occur only when there is a commonness of understanding between sender and receiver. The basis of commonness can be culture, language and environment. Words, phrases, idioms, gestures and proverbs provide common basis of communication. Communication also serves the purpose to modify the behavior of other persons. The information transmitted to the receiver brings forth a response in the form of some change in his or her behavior. That means with the help of communication, we tend to change the behavior of the other person with whom we are communicating. The fifth element of communication says that method of giving information has to be there. Information is provided with the help of words or through gestures and expressions, etc. So, these were some of the elements of communication. But we must also know that there are different types of communication. Basically, communication can be divided into 4 types. Number 1, verbal communication. Number 2, non-verbal communication. Number 3, formal communication. And number 4, informal communication. Let us discuss about it one by one. Communication can actually broadly be divided into 2 categories. First is the verbal communication and second is the non-verbal communication. Let us understand one by one. First of all, verbal communication. Verbal communication provides us with meaningful interaction between people, information and direction. It is a fundamental requirement for life. Then comes the non-verbal communication. It is interesting to note that non-verbal communication or the body language accounts for more than 70% of our communication, while words or the verbal communication accounts for just about 10%. The non-verbal communication is very important in human interaction. Non-verbal communication is actually done with the help of gestures, eye contact, facial expressions, postures and body orientation. Distance are some of the normal ways of communicating with people around us. What does non-verbal communication actually helps us to learn? Non-verbal communication creates impression beyond the verbal elements of communication. It also reinforces what has been said. It expresses our emotions and interpersonal attitudes. It conveys power, affection, dominance, respect, etc. It also manages and regulates the interaction with others and also allows self-presentation. That is, non-verbal communication apart from verbal communication does so many things to send a message effectively. There are various channels of communication. However, it must be noted that it is influenced by culture and hence it must be understood with reference to particular culture. Let us understand with the help of certain terms that how we can understand communication in different culture. First is kinesics. Now what is it? Kinesis or body language deals with the physical movement, while gaze or eye contact deals with the eyes, that is your fixed gaze or a lot of eye movement. Second is proxemics. Proxemics involves the use of social distance between people. It is estimated that following pattern of distance is maintained in different contexts. What is this pattern? Let us know. In different contexts or in different cultures, usually the distance for intimate space is 0 to 18 inches. For personal space or for informal distance, it has to be 18 inches to 4 feet. The social distance or the formal distance is maintained at 4 feet to 12 feet and the public space is maintained beyond 12 feet. That is, these are the distances that are there when we are interacting with the other person relative to the context in which we are interacting. For example, if we are sharing an intimate space, then the distance between two people or more than two people has to be between 0 to 18 inches. Whereas, when you are meeting somebody formally, then the distance has to be 4 feet and 12 feet between you and the other person. Haptics. It actually refers to touch as another channel of communication, which is a function of culture. It has been found that North Americans touch less, whereas people in the Asian culture have a tendency to touch each other more and express their feelings through touching. As of now, we have discussed about the meaning of communication and the different elements that are involved in communication. Let us also understand that what are the various features of communicating effectively. First is the common frame of reference. That means the sender and the receiver should interact at a common level of understanding. When a mother speaks to her child, she uses words which are present in the child's vocabulary. For example, a scolding tone if the child has been naughty, or a concerned tone when the child is unwell. That means the child knows that if the mother is scolding him or her, it is because the child is being naughty, or if the mother is showing concern, it is because the child is being unwell. That means there is a common frame of reference. Thus, a common level of understanding is essential for effective communication. Contents of the communication must be of mutual interest, which is another important feature of effective communication. For a farmer, how the stock market operates is of no interest, as his concern is about the quality of seeds and the manure or the effect of climate changes on the crops. The another important feature of effective communication is common language. That means when we are interacting with the other person, the language has to be common. It is the strongest means of verbal communication. A common language ensures effective communication because it ensures minimum misunderstanding of words, phrases, idioms and proverbs. Another important feature of effective communication is common environment. That is, people who come from these similar backgrounds understand the message without much problem. Thus, nationality, economic status, culture, social interest, age group and professions are some of the examples where we can say that when people are interacting in such common environment, the communication is going to be effective. Now let us understand the non-verbal communication in the Indian context. It is important to understand the nature of non-verbal communication of any culture, particularly as it is used in everyday life. Some non-verbal cues are common to all cultures and they send the same message. Non-verbal communication gives us information about our relationship with others with regard to liking, status, age, gender and it is appropriate for conveying our emotions also. In the Indian context, there are distinct ways of communicating with the other person non-verbally. Let us understand that how the non-verbal communication happens in the Indian context. First is the body language and movement or kinesis. So, in the Indian setting, couples are not expected to show affectionate or intimate gestures towards each other, particularly if they are in a public place or in the presence of the family. Holding of hands of one's husband is frowned upon. That means frowning is a non-verbal communication that is communicating that holding hands of one's husband in front of other people is not liked in the Indian society. Then handshakes are actually common, but more so between men or between women. Handshakes between a man and a woman are generally avoided in the Indian context. Indians have high power distance index, which indicates that cultural factors such as hierarchy, authority and age play a definitive role in communications. Indians actually value their personal space. Usually 1.5 to 2 meters is the norm. Yet, there is little physical distance with family and close friends. Public affection, holding hands, hugging among his family and close friends is quite common. Let us come up to the last topic of discussion, which is role and impact of media. Media. It is a technological means of sending information, ideas and opinions to a large audience. We live in a society where information and communication help us to progress ahead in various fields of life like work, healthcare, entertainment, education, travel and personal relationships. Children and teenagers are heavily influenced by media information regarding fashion, ideal body type, ideal image of beauty, urban lifestyles, etc. But media has certain positive as well as negative influences also. Let us discuss first of all about the positive influences of media. It plays an important role. It both educates and enriches our lives. Media provides us educational information and also helps us in improving academic performance. It collects and distributes information and news which can be religious, political, social, entertainment and environment to the general public. Media can be used for helping a beneficial cause such as promoting literacy or providing information about the benefits of medical progress. It also transmits social and cultural values. It plays a significant role in informing the public about the government policies and latest programs etc. to the general public. It helps to mobilize people and bring about social integration. Mass media contact has been possible with the use of newspaper, radio, television, news channels and the internet. But there are certain negative influences of media also. Let us discuss that what can be the negative influences of media. It can be misused by spreading wrong information and news, often leading to violence, prejudice and hatred among communities. It can play a role in spreading rumors and propaganda. So, it must be realized that media serves an important function in the society. Therefore, it must fulfill certain responsibilities and obligations. It must contain and maintain ethical standards whereby it provides objective, balanced and accurate information to the masses and avoid inciting masses towards crime, violence, etc. Community building and national integration must be one of the main objectives of media, and media should reflect the pluralistic nature of India and provide a voice to all the members of the nation. So dear learners, this was all about today's program, in which we could understand the meaning of communication as well as the features, the different types of communication and the role of mass media. Before I end up, let us summarize that what we have done in the today's program. Today, we discussed that communication is a process of interaction with people and the environment, and it is a two-way process where a receiver and a sender has to be there. There are different types of communication in which we discussed about verbal communication, which is actually the meaningful interaction between people by providing information and directions through words spoken or written. We also discussed about the non-verbal means of communication that involves gestures, eye contacts, facial expressions, etc. We discussed about the features of effective communication, where we could understand that for the communication to be effective, there has to be a common frame of reference. Communication must be of mutual interest between both the sender and the receiver, and common language and common environment must exist for a communication to be effective. We also discussed that what is non-verbal communication in the Indian context and how communication can be done with the help of media and what are the positive and negative influences of media in communication on the human behavior. So with this, I end up for today's program, but I hope that you have understood this topic well. Thank you.